In this episode, we talk about how clutter affects your productivity. Get excited because this is Tiny Leaps. Big change, big change. Welcome to another episode of Tiny Leaps. Big changes, where I share simple strategies you can use to get more out of your life. My name is Greg Clunas, and in this episode, we look at the role that clutter plays on our productivity, our focus, and our general well-being, our mental state. It's one of those things that I think we all sort of subconsciously understand is a problem, is something that affects us, but for whatever reason, many of us don't really do anything about it. So I wanted to make this episode to talk more about it, to share some of what I've been reading on the subject, and to share what you can do to remove clutter as a factor in your day-to-day productivity and your focus. So this should be a really good episode. Now, before we jump in, let's talk about today's sponsor. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Surfshark is a VPN service that makes online privacy protection easy and attainable. Surfshark encrypts all internet traffic sent to and from your devices and ensures that your IP address remains hidden to make sure nobody can see what you do online. On top of that, they block ads, trackers, malware, and phishing attempts. And unlike other VPN services, you can use it on as many devices as you'd like simultaneously. Here's something you might not know about me. I'm a massive fan of the UK reality show Love Island. A few months back, I finished all 5 seasons of the UK version when I learned that there's also an Australian version, which sounds amazing. Unfortunately, it was only available on Hulu in Australia at the time. Now, if I had Surfshark VPN back then, it wouldn't have been an issue. All I'd have to do is log in, switch my location to Australia, and bam! Instant access to all of the cool stuff they get to watch that just isn't available here in the US. You'll never have to worry about being region locked ever again. And the most exciting part about this is that it can help you save money when you're traveling. All these travel sites, right? They know where you are accessing it from and how likely you are to purchase a ticket at a certain price. People all over the world see different prices for the same flights. Crazy, right? With Surfshark VPN, just change your region and shop around for the lowest ticket price. But don't take my word for it. Try Surfshark VPN out for yourself. Head over to www.surfshark.deals/tinyleaps and use my promo code TINYLEAPS at checkout to get 83% off and an extra 1 month free. That's www.surfshark.deals/tinyleaps. All right, we're back and we're talking about how clutter affects our productivity. Now, before we jump into this, I want to share a section from an article I recently read over on the Harvard Business Review. It's all about the role that clutter plays in productivity, and I think you're going to find it just as interesting as I did. Quote, "You may think you're not bothered by your overstuffed filing cabinets or the stacks of paper on your desk, but scientists at the Princeton University Neuroscience Institute have used fMRI and other approaches to show that our brains like order and that constant visual reminders of disorganization drain our cognitive resources and reduce our ability to focus. They also found that when participants cleared clutter from their work environment, they were better able to focus and process information, and their productivity increased." End quote. So what these scientists have found is that the pure visual reminder of disorder, the visual reminder of things sort of not being where they should be, things being disorganized and scattered and sort of all over the place, for lack of a better phrase, that sort of prompts the mind to start recognizing that and start sort of feeling that way and focusing on that, focusing on the scatter, focusing on the disorganization, which drains our resources. We only have a set amount of whatever resource at the end of the day. And throughout the day, we're using it for all of these different parts of our life, all of these decisions we have to make, all of the things we need to focus on, the things that we're trying to do. And by adding this additional thing to focus on, which is already difficult to focus on because by it scattered, right? By definition, it's hard to focus on. Things are everywhere. They're not where they should be. So you're focused on the disorder of the situation. And because there's no central point of that disorder to focus on, you're sort of jumping from thing to thing to thing. And that drains resources. That allows you to spend resources on worrying about that or stressing about that, even subconsciously, rather than on the actual tasks that you need to be focused on. And they found that when you clean those things up, when you go through that process and you keep things organized, you're able to use those resources more efficiently and more effectively towards your biggest goals. So this is something that has been proven. I have linked to the full Harvard Business Review article, which that article also links to a few different research documents on the subject. So if you're curious, I recommend that you click the link in the description, check that out, and do a little bit of research for yourself. Now let's talk about what you can do, how you can improve this in your own life. Now the first thing you can do is to create a schedule of regular cleanup, right? It's been proven that if you do a little bit every day or every other day or whatever the frequency looks like, to keep things in order rather than waiting for it to be disordered and then spending a lot of time to get it back into order. If you just maintain it and keep things in order, you're ultimately going to spend less resources, less energy, and less time on keeping things organized. Now, it doesn't seem like it because it seems like, oh, well, it's 3 minutes here, 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here, every day, every third day, whatever the frequency is for you. But it does ultimately end up saving you time. And a big part of that is because if you wait until things start to get disorganized, during that process, you're still getting distracted by that clutter. Right? That is still a factor even before it hits its worst point. It's not like you go from zero to complete mess overnight, right? That doesn't happen. It's a progressive thing. And having a tiny mess is still distracting you and causing you to focus on the disorganization, which is draining resources. So you end up having this really long period of time where you are draining resources. You're not as focused on the things that you need to be focused on, even though your office, your workspace isn't as disorganized as it theoretically could be. And then finally, once it does get to that point, then you're now spending a few hours cleaning it all up, getting it back organized. And that might feel good. Trust me, that has always been my approach. So that might feel good, but it doesn't exactly allow us to maximize the energy and the effort and the time that we have in order to get the most value from cleaning up, from keeping things organized. So the first thing is to build a schedule. It doesn't matter if it's daily or every other day or every 3 days, but some kind of schedule that allows you to clean up more regularly, spend less time on it, but therefore keep things organized a little bit longer. I think ultimately that's going to help you to burn less energy and burn less time than you would otherwise. Now, the second thing you can do is to create an organizational system. See, a big part of why things get cluttered is because we've never actually thought through how we keep it organized. Like, where do things actually go? What tools do we need to get them organized? Like, do we need a filing cabinet? Do we need folders? Do we need extra drawer space? Do we need a shelf added to the wall? Like, we don't actually think about what our organizational system looks like. And so oftentimes, even when things are in the right place, it still feels cluttered and messy because the right place isn't the best place. The right place isn't always the best way to organize it. It's just sort of what we unconsciously landed on, right? That folder has been on our desk for 6 months and all of the papers are inside of the folder, but the folder doesn't necessarily have to be there. We just never stop to think about where it should be. What does the system look like? Where do folders go in the grand scheme of our work environment? So take that time to design and build and develop an organizational system. Get the tools that you need, whether that be a filing cabinet, a shelf, a bookend, whatever you might need to organize things in your day-to-day life. Get those tools, think through the system, think through things where things actually go, and actually put that plan into action. That's where the bulk of your value is going to come from. Because yes, you can spend time cleaning up, but again, if you're putting things in the spot that is not necessarily the best spot because you just never took the time to think about it, well, that's not going to really help you all that much. So at the end of the day, you do have to take some time away from your space and just think through what is the actual best way to organize this space. And this is something that I still struggle with my own workspace because it's not easy. It takes a lot of time, and it's not something that I often feel like I can spare the time and energy to do. But I guarantee you that if I did, and I plan to, when I do, it's going to change the way that my space feels, and it's going to change the way that I focus and work in that space. So I'm really excited for that, and I think you should be as well for your own space. And then finally, the third thing you can do as you're living your life, take the extra 3 seconds, the 5 seconds, the 6 seconds that it requires to put things back in its place. Once you've designed an organizational system and you know that everything is going in what seems like the best place possible for it, take the time as soon as you do something. If you pull out a folder, you open it up, you take out a sheet of paper that you're looking for, you get the information from it, pause for a second, put the paper back in the folder, put the folder back in its place. I know it seems annoying. I know it seems like, oh, well, I can get to it later. I don't want to distract myself from my work, so I'm just going to put it to the side and then deal with it later. But that's how clutter happens, because later doesn't actually come. You're so focused on the work, and that's good, that you're not thinking about the efficiency of that work, where it might take you 3 seconds, and that might be a slight distraction now. But if you aren't able to put that folder away later, and it just sits there, and then more folders pile on top of it, because now that is a thing that is happening, and you're just going to keep following that pattern, that momentum, that routine, all of a sudden you've got clutter. All of a sudden you've got mess. All of a sudden you've got a disorganized situation that causes your brain to not be able to focus as much as it could. So avoid that scenario altogether. Yes, we like to think that we're going to be perfect. We're going to be able to do exactly what we say we're going to do. We said we're going to put it away later, so obviously we're going to put it away later. But you have to remember that you will lie to yourself. You have to remember that things aren't always that easy. Things are outside of your control sometimes. Things might pop up that cause that later to not happen through no fault of your own. So just take the extra time, the 3 seconds, the 2 seconds, the 5 seconds right now, put that thing away and keep it organized so that when you combine all three of these things together, you've got a system that you're building on. You're working within a system that you know works. You are doing what you can in the moments that they're happening to take care of things and get them back into the right spot. And then when things do inevitably still litter your space and cause a little bit of disorganization, you have a regular cleaning schedule to make sure that you minimize the amount of time spent in disorganization. If you can do those three things, you're going to do a much better job of removing clutter as a factor in your productivity. Now, there might be a ton of other reasons why you're not productive, but at the very least, you'll know that clutter isn't a major part of it. So I hope this is helpful to someone out there. If it is, be sure to click subscribe wherever you are tuning in. If it's over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that the audio show lives, or if you are currently watching on YouTube, be sure to click subscribe there as well. Drop a comment down below. Click the link in the description so you can check out the full article for yourself and do a little bit of research on your own. And as always, I've been Greg Clunis. Remember that all big changes come from the tiny leaps you take every day.